Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, producer of the No Quitting the Home Team podcast. I wanted to give a quick disclaimer in that while we hope anyone who listens would gain wisdom and insight from Dave and Renee's conversations, this is still a podcast intended for married couples, and to that end there will occasionally be dialogue around sexual intimacy and other related topics. So, for those of you who may be single and particularly sensitive to this subject matter, or those who may be listening at home or in the car with their kids around, we wanted to give you a heads up in advance so that you might continue listening at your own discretion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of No Quitting the Home Team. I'm Renee.
I'm Dave.
I'm Jesse.
We're excited you've joined us for yet another marriage book discussion.
Can I reintroduce myself? I'm Sleepy.
Oh, hi, Sleepy. Welcome to the show.
Oh, should we all be?
Hi, Sleepy.
Should we all be
I'm Dad.
dwarfs today? I'm grumpy.
Grumpy. You're
I'm
grumpy.
grumpy.
Okay.
I'm grumpy.
This is a preface for how's your marriage?
I know. Totally.
I don't know very many of the dwarf. What are my options? What are my dwarf
Dopey.
options? Dopey. I feel like that was an accusation.
No,
Yeah, that one came a little quick.
Gosh, what are they? Dopey, sleepy, Doc.
Well, you are Doc.
You are
You're
Doc.
always Doc.
Like
Yeah.
there's a doctor. dwarf?
And he's called Doc.
Really? Okay, I'll be that one. That
Okay,
sounds
hang on.
better
Then
than
Dopey.
Well, especially fresh off the heels of your trip, right?
That's
Like,
He's the most popular one. That's why he came to mind.
Oh, okay.
He's the most beloved
Oh, well,
dwarf. What, bashful,
Bashful.
bashful.
dopey, sleepy, bashful, Doc.
Ours was not a big Snow White household, so I'm
same here,
woefully,
same
woefully
here.
unprepared for
Okay,
this
they're
conversation.
gonna come to me in the middle of the podcast, and I'm just gonna blurt them out.
That's all right. That's
You
all
know,
right.
as a
You should do
producer,
it.
I could have already Googled this, but again, I'm sleepy.
Anyway, as the grumpy one today, Dave, introduce our book now. No,
What is this book? Okay,
what's the book?
this book is fantastic. It is written by the Gottmans of the Gottman Institute, and it's called The Love Prescription. And for our listeners at home, this is very important. The book is not Prescription for Love. If you Google
That's a different
Prescription
book.
for Love, you're going to have a different storyline, different themes involved than the Love Prescription, which is by the
John
lovely,
Gottman and Julie Schwartz Gottman.
Yes, the lovely Gottman family, both longtime researchers and well-known.
Probably the most known, wouldn't you say, in the United States, according to Amazon.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Well,
authority.
And they have the double benefit, most well-known and respected.
Yep.
A lot of people are well-known in
Right,
fields,
right.
but not respected.
And
These
a
people,
deep catalog, too. Like,
Yeah, great
consistently
longevity.
doing research. And, yeah.
And so the book that we're reviewing today is a very short book that I think does about as good of a job as they could probably do on summarizing all of their 30 years of research into a single volume that's short. I listened to this book on Audible 4.5 hours. My trip was almost exactly 4.5 hours, and I finished it on one plane ride. And they packed in, over the years, we've read many of their books. They packed in all of their insights in one little bitty book. And in fact, the whole idea of this particular book is that you can experience the fruit of their research in 1 week of your marriage. So the book is broken down into 7 days, and each day has a theme that helps to sort of unpack one aspect of your relationship. So I can't wait to get into it. We'll learn a lot from John and Julie Gottman today.
Yeah. Good preview.
So, Dave, really quick, what made you choose, because we had a handful, again, when you're talking about a catalog as deep as theirs, there's a lot of books we could have chosen. We actually had a different one slated. What made you change from the original choice we had to The Love Prescription?
The original choice we had was, at that point, their most recent book. And I read that about, I don't know, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, and I hated it.
Which was unexpected.
Because I've loved all of their stuff.
Yeah.
And that book, from my perspective, was just trash. And so I was so fired up about it. You, as the producer of No Quitting the Home Team, Jesse, wanted to highlight this book just so that you could
Get some fireworks.
Get me fired up.
I feel like I'm being misrepresented here. I wanted to do it because you had such a strong opinion on it, and that felt valuable in the same way that other books that we've had strong opinions on, good, bad,
Right.
otherwise, it felt important to express what drew your ire.
True.
From that.
Which that makes sense.
I also like seeing you get tilted because it doesn't happen very often.
very often.
But thing is, their body of work is so good. It felt weird for me. Like it felt like, in a sense, untrue or
Unrepresentative.
to highlight like their worst.
Yeah. Well, in
Totally
true
fair.
story, I was having coffee with a wonderful, lovely, brilliant friend of mine last Thursday, and I was she has been listening to the podcast. Shout out Lori Barr. And she said, they have a brand new book, don't you? And we didn't know that.
No.
And so she actually made us aware that there was a very new book. And so
You texted it to me.
I said, hey, the Gottmans have a new book out. And you were like, oh, really? So that's actually why we chose this book.
Yes. And then we looked on Audible, and it was 4.5 hours, and it's like, hey, we got time.
Yeah.
We got time to do it. So that's why we did this one, and I'm really glad we did.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
All right. So how's everybody doing? Just so you know, it's Doc, sleepy, bashful, dopey, grumpy, sneezy, and happy.
Oh, happy.
Yeah, you're
Can I be
often-
happy?
You're usually happy. Jesse might be sneezy. He just said there's a cold. He feels a cold coming on.
And you can hear it in my voice, I'm sure.
I'm down a few
You
octaves.
just feel the whole right side of my skull like getting cloudier and cloudier.
So the question, how are we doing? I'm actually most curious about this question because I've been gone for 4 days.
You've been gone since early Sunday morning, and it's Thursday afternoon, so it's a little more than 4.
So
All day Sunday.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, got back Wednesday night.
Yeah, but then you got up and left at 5 a.m. this morning.
Right.
Yeah, so it's mostly
So
today too.
5 days.
I'm a bad Christian, and I slept through men's Bible study this morning. Let the record show.
So did Will. You guys are on the same wavelength.
So I literally, like last night, got in late with Will, whole story. It was incredible. I want to know how you're doing, Renee. Like,
We
we've
literally
texted back and forth.
very, very briefly.
Briefly, when I came in last night, it was late. It was Chicago,
It was
the Chicago shows.
Beckett and my date.
You were engaged.
Yes.
And so I want to know how you're doing. Because you have a week, like,
Yeah.
I want to catch up with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a couple of hours. So let me try to distill it.
Uh-huh.
I think yesterday. So it's interesting. I think it may be our personalities, and it may be men and women's differences broadly. But when you go out of town, I kind of morph into like I have to do everything the same and to the same level, and the things that you normally do to the same level, right? Wouldn't
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah.
So it's like make yummy dinners, breakfasts, lunches, all the things to the same level or more or exceed it. So the house is clean, the laundry's done. I keep up everything, right? So it's a lot of work to do because we do have a pretty delineated schedule to where, and it's pretty tight. Like the things you do and the things I do. And so when you're gone, I do my things and your things to the same level that we normally do them to, which I do feel like it's different when I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like I think this might be a gender thing where it's like you keep them alive and breathing. I mean, even last time I was gone, one of my most favorite things in the entire world, you forgot and just dropped and didn't do. Right. So I think it's just exhausting when you're gone because I'm doing double time. And then I had a few things happen where unexpected that just made it crazier or whatever.
Right.
And so I know you're coming home. And so then for me to be doing double time and then you come home late and, just the vomit of bags and of what that looks like when you guys come home. And then I'd made dinner, which was like, and you guys ate and then just left all the leftovers out and all the dishes out. And so I'm kind of already settled in for the evening. And I go back in the kitchen and there's just like clothes vomit everywhere. There's like backpack vomit everywhere. And then you guys come in and eat because I made you dinner, of course, right? And then just leave everything. It was just kind of like, I don't know. It felt a little, I know the last 4 days have just been really fun and you kind of been on vacation mode in some ways. Like in some ways, like you're eating out and you're not picking up, you're not doing kind of normal life things. But I have been times 2. And so it just felt really like, yeah, thanks for putting the pizza up after the leftovers. So anyway, I was just like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah. Well, I
know you did. I know you sensed it. I know
some of that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was curious. I felt like we needed to talk through that.
Yeah.
And so why not here in front of
right.
In front of our friends,
our millions of listeners.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. I feel better today. It just it felt inconsiderate.
Yeah. Which even when we get into the book, I think, I think the biggest drawback of the Gottman, like the dark side of their insight is, they talk about they don't really talk about how you have hard conversations.
Right. It's all sunny. It's all rosy.
Right.
Yep.
But I think you talk to any couple and the ability to have harder conversations and not be triggered and to recognize when you've messed up is really important.
Yeah.
And that's not really
right.
That's not really their thing.
Well, and even like, so you're like, hey, what can I do to make your night better? And I'm like, just give me some ice water. And you didn't even do it. Like I said it directly, like just grab me some ice water or whatever. And you did it.
Yeah.
After an hour, I'm like, okay, well, I'll get up since I'd already settled in.
Yeah.
I'll get up and go do this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Which I don't even remember you asking me. So just let you know kind of where my mind was flying in and late, and my mind just wasn't. So just all over the place. Just my brain was a bag of cats.
Yeah. Well, and I think too. Then they talk about this, and I was listening to it on a walk, and they talk about how detrimental it is to expect your spouse to read your mind. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
But I think it's difficult when you've been with someone for so long and there are just basic things that they should know. And that if you have to ask these really basic things that they should know those.
Right.
Like there's a line there. And, I could think of an example, like a silly example, but I don't know. I don't know if I completely agreed with them on that point that you just always have to ask for what you want.
Well, when we get into it, I was gonna press in on that a little bit because I do think.
But they're just when you've been with someone for a very, very long time and you have to say something they know, and you've probably verbalized a million times, to have to verbalize it again. I don't know. That feels like they're not trying.
Right. Well, and maybe that is the case.
Right. Anyway, we can get to that later.
Yeah.
How are you doing? And I actually wore a T-shirt that represents my week, and I feel a little weird, and my kids hate it when I wear the shirt. It's like a shirt I won at a gym that I worked out at before COVID, but it says Hell Week. So I wore it today in honor of my week.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I've been at a conference, took Will with me.
Where was this conference?
It was in
Raleigh,
Durham,
North Carolina.
North Carolina. So the conference part was in Raleigh. And then Will did a college visit at Duke, which was a lot of it was really cool and fun. So it was a super packed week, East Coast time. So I'm starting from my body 3:30 in the morning and then going, super, super late. So, it was fun. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy these people, and the conference itself has always been life-giving, since these are people that you and I have known for
long time.
almost 20 years, many of them. So it was great. I didn't present this year, which meant that I was able to spend more time enjoying the conference rather than preparing to deliver a paper. And since Will was with me, I didn't have to have extra time working outside of the actual conference to prepare or anything like that. So got in late last night, beat for sure. So not feeling, bleary-eyed tired, but came in and knew full well that you've been doing double work. I will say that it's always a little hurtful when the boys tell me. So I was asking them early this morning, preparing for our early morning men's Bible study. Yeah, how was your week? And they always tell me when it's with you, the week was great, Dad. Ian and Beckett did just fine. They were just
No, it's because I run myself ragged to make sure it was great.
Right.
Case in point, Beckett wanted me to, our kid's back to school. We have this great system. Dave drops him off, goes on to work, comes home. It works with geographically where his work is located. So me adding biking them to him, it's 3 miles each way. Adding biking them to him from school is a lot.
Yeah.
And so on Wednesday, yesterday, they got out early and Beckett wanted to go to the rec center. And so Beckett's backpack, and this is a thing with their charter school, but it weighs 4,000 pounds. It is so heavy. So we have to, Dave, you carry it, don't you?
Carry it,
yeah. So, but you're a bit stronger than I am and a bit larger. So when I put on Beckett's backpack, it is so heavy, my hands go numb. So Beckett was like, I want to go to the rec center. And I'm like, okay. So I bike him to the rec center, and then I bike home. And then it was exponentially more exhausting. And I made it to where it didn't feel like they weren't getting to do things because you weren't here.
Right.
That's why they said it was super fun.
Yeah. And I knew that it was because you put in the extra work.
Yeah.
But coming in,
Right.
after not seeing him for 4 days,
You want him to be like,
I'm like,
I miss you
"Oh,
so
Dad."
much.
Yeah. Whereas to your point earlier, when you're gone, they feel it.
Right.
And
Right.
when you come back,
They are
they're
more.
like, thank the Lord, she's back. Now we have a great time.
Right.
It's dad time.
Right.
But things kind of fall apart a little bit too.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's good catching up with you, Renee.
It's good.
I think it's good to have kind of get a sense of where you're at and where you've been the past few days.
I really do. When we have times that one or either of us travel, I don't know how couples really do that well, because it really throws a wrench in us.
It's tough.
Almost every time. And maybe you get used to it and you develop habits that allow you to stay connected with that. But anytime you're gone or I'm gone, it just really, it's hard on a marriage. And and there are couples, I'm sure, that are listening that one or both travel all the time.
Yeah, they have to. I would assume they just have to work out those muscles and sort of the entry and expectations, and they can probably learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Jesse shaking his head over here.
Having done that
Yeah.
at different seasons in our life where one of us was traveling more for work, it's, very much that.
Yeah.
And expectations was the key word that stood out to me. Like,
Yep.
you just need to understand it's going to be different.
Yep.
It's not going to be the same. It may not be worse. Probably won't be better. It's just going to be different. And let's just establish the expectations. Like, hey, when Shell went out of town for MomCon and I was watching the two boys, I told her, I was like, hey, there's some stuff that I want to get done with the house. I need you to know that when you come back, the house is probably not going to look the way you want it to. And we just need to be okay with that because the boys are fed and alive and getting to and from school.
Yep.
And I'm not.
It's the basics, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and there's going to be dishes in the sink and everybody's going to live, And in the same way, she's like, whenever I have to leave, she's like, hey, when you come back, I'm going to need a minute. She's like, I'm going to need to go out of the house because unlike me, I'm happy to hole up, and every moment she's in our house, she's just like dying a little more. Like she needs to be out in the world and with people. They don't need to be people she knows. She just needs to be around people. And so like being holed up in the house with kids is, it is taxing. And so,
How was Mexico?
Mexico was incredible.
Good.
It was great. And
We do have to give you a bit of a hard time because
That's right. This is accountability time for you, Jesse.
In the last podcast, you said overtly that you were going to take your phone and lock it in the safe, and both of us received text from you when you were there.
you did.
And we were like, the phone is not in the safe.
You're right. You're right.
The phone is out.
That is correct. I was undisciplined in that manner.
But it was still a good week.
It was great. And
We kid.
Oh, no. I need the accountability. Mexico was incredible. Very restful, restorative for both of us.
Good.
We had the Acts 29 North American Conference this week. And so that was also very refreshing to be around a lot of old friends. When we were doing the regional, without getting too far into the weeds, when we used to do regional conferences for A29, so it would be like, here's the American West, and it's all of our California and Front Range, Colorado, and
Nevada.
Exactly, that crew. And so we got really, really tight with those guys. And then we've started doing just a whole North American conference, which is great because it's like I've worked in other places and have a lot of friends at other churches that are part of the network across the country. So it was really fun to, in some cases, see people I haven't seen in 10 years.
Wow.
It was great. It was really beautiful. Worship was great. And then we also, because we are gluttons for punishment, the worship and arts team at FDC decided we were going to host a worship gathering that started pretty much immediately when the main conference ended.
Just a conference after the conference.
Conference after the conference. So we wanted.
We didn't get enough conference.
Well,
and
genuinely, kind of the structure changes every year, but we wanted to offer time for people to be kind of poured into specifically in a shepherding context for worship leaders. And we wanted to speak specifically to those roles and challenges.
Yeah. I'm sure that was very meaningful.
And it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Dave got to worship with us this morning.
Yeah.
And turns out you put 100 worship leaders in a room together and it's going to be just a very brief glimpse of what heaven will be. And it was incredible. And so my body is depleted and my heart is overflowing.
That's great, Jesse.
It's great.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, shall we get into this book?
Let's do it. It's The Love Prescription by John Gottman and Julie Schwartz Gottman.
So the first question is, can there possibly be a prescription for love? And to that answer, John and Julie say,
Yes.
of course there is. We've spent 30 years of our life trapped in a love lab in University of Washington, dissecting marriages and relationships and romantic dynamics, and they
analyzed every side and every angle and every glance,
everything that can be observed.
Yes,
They've
measured
They've measured and observed it. Now,
so give the premise real quick. The premise is that they've distilled their work in, like, they've taken the best kernels of their work and put it into 7 actionable days.
Yes. And then if you do it, that's the thing that you take. That's the prescription that's going to produce and support
these seven kind of behaviors that they claim are simple and do not take a lot of time to do.
Right. Part of the genius of it is they really talk about little bitty changes that make significant differences. So, like when you shift a rudder in a boat just a little bit, at first it may just feel like, oh, it's just like an inch on the rudder. But over the course of minutes and hours and days, the course is significantly different than what it would be if you hadn't changed that rudder. In the same way, if you just employ some of these practices, then your relationship will inevitably get better and better and better. Not perfect necessarily, but far improved than what it would be without it. So they say, we've kind of discovered, we've cracked. They're really bold in their.
Yeah, they are.
We've cracked the code, and here it is, and it's yours for $13.99,
which I know is a thing that you love. Whenever researchers proclaim to have unlocked the secrets of the universe,
it's the thing that I criticize in all these books. Is anytime there's someone who says, I have discovered the way or the insight, I feel like they're always highlighting something and they're probably downplaying something.
Well, but they
else.
say the ways. They're not saying this one thing. They're saying it's a myriad of things. It's a collective.
It is
of behaviors.
Right.
So
Totally.
that kind of broadens it from, I have discovered the thing, that I have 7 keys, not just 1 key.
Right. But even in those 7 keys, really, it's just 3 keys. So the prescription, they kind of give a little like preview in the very beginning of the book, where they said, here are the 3 things. 1, you have to stay curious about each other.
Right.
2, you have to show and foster fondness for each other. That if you don't develop admiration for each other, that's relational sort of death. Like if you don't do that, so you have to stay curious, show fondness, develop fondness, and then the third is you have to turn towards each other. They basically say those three things are like the prescription.
Yeah, which are sort of hard to apply. I mean, they're pretty broad. They're pretty esoteric.
They are. Which then in each
Right,
chapter, you know, they break out in several different
Specifics.
days how you sort of highlight different aspects. But that's really that's the pill.
And they say based on. I mean, he was a mathematician prior,
Which I didn't know.
and he went to
missed
MIT.
that.
He went to MIT. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
He started as a student of math at MIT, and then his roommate was a psychology major, and he started reading their books and just kind of fell in love with psychology. But once he was sort of into this field, he really like redrew on his math interests and math expertise to validate methods and test out methods. I did feel a little bit like this love lab, like the way they talk about people, it's like they're mice.
Well,
It's
like
we had a theory and then we just wanted to test it out. So we had these couples come in and we,
so let's go mess with some marriages.
created seriously created the environment. So I guess those early
And they had like control groups, so
totally
the poor
had
couples
control
that
groups.
I mean,
like are thinking they're improving their marriage.
which listen, it
It's a
sounds
placebo.
it
It's a
sounds
placebo.
callous, but what it actually is good research.
Right? No,
Good
right.
science is
right.
what it is,
It is. It was just a little bit like, okay.
but a little dehumanizing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's, you know, analytics in sports now, sort of, you know, it's all over the place. He's just done analytics for relationships. It's the same thing.
Yep.
So it's he's broken it down in these sort of mathematical equations.
And they do, they utilize all sorts of relationships. People who have just met, people who have been married 50 years, heterosexual relationships, same-sex, like it's every type of, their control study is enormous as far as ages and types of relationships.
Yes. But they have a conviction, which I love this. Their conviction is that loving relationships is good for the world. Mm-hmm. It's necessary for society, and it's literally good for your health. You live longer if you're in a good relationship.
You have less disease.
Yep. Your lifespan.
Yeah.
The one study they quoted from Germany where they said this German study said that men who kiss their wives every morning
Right. Live longer.
live 5 years
longer. I thought that was so crazy.
than men who don't.
Yeah.
But that's their conviction. Like, the world's a better place. We build shalom. Mm-hmm. We refashion the fragments of this world based on healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that's a good common, like a
Good
common
building
grace
building
type
block fabric for society.
Yes, so I affirm that, and I'm really happy at the University of Washington support them in their I almost said ministry. Like, it is a kind
And
of
this
ministry.
is, we didn't mention this, but this is not a Christian.
Oh yeah, to clarify,
Yeah.
it's not a Christian
Perspective.
Even though a lot of their, as we found with a lot of the so-called secular books, a lot of their insights are aligned with historic sort of biblical wisdom.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to kind of try to hit each one and kind of give a brief description of what the 7?
yeah.
Okay.
And we'll do it how they do it, which is day 1, day 2, day 3. So they envision this to be like a week that can transform your marriage.
Yep.
So
each day you employ one strategy or tactic or behavior or whatever.
yeah, that is scientifically proven to help your relationship. Mm-hmm. So
Day 1.
day 1 is bid for connection. Now, what they mean by that is that in every relationship, the one or both partners will make several attempts, whether they're explicitly or implicitly, to volley, to give an opportunity for engagement with each other.
Like, hey, honey, listen to this article. Listen to this.
Yeah. Or referencing back to our previous conversation, hey, honey, it would be nice to have some ice water.
I was shut. What are there? You can either, there are 3 categories you can.
So after someone gets a bid,
Yeah.
then you respond to that bid in one of 3 ways. One is you volley.
You volley, yeah.
2, you ignore it
Yeah.
because you're too distracted.
Or 3, you're hostile.
Or 3, it's I'm busy.
Or like, get your own water, lazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
hostile.
How many times are you going to ask me?
Yeah.
So, the listeners at home can probably guess how you should respond to a bid.
Yeah.
Which is you lean, or what's the language they use? Turn toward. So couples.
And they claim this is the number 1 factor of successful relationships versus unsuccessful relationships.
So they tracked 1,000 couples. So they treated them like mice.
They observed them in an environment.
And they made notes as to which couples have learned to turn towards a bid Again,
And a bid can even be like just a wink or a smile, smiling at your partner.
or a groan. Bids can be negatively tinted as well. Like, oh,
It's like, oh, honey, are you feeling yucky? Or,
Yeah.
Or you're such a complainer. Stop.
right.
Yeah.
So, couples that turn towards bids more than not, 86% of them oh wait, the ones that the couples that survived and thrived in marriage, 86% of them did this well. Mm-hmm. And
Not 100% accuracy, but mostly.
yeah, most of them did, like, had learned either intuitively or the skills
Yep.
to, and then the couples who ended in divorce, only 33% of them did it. So for the math guy, he was like, the difference between 33% and 86% is so significant.
Mm-hmm.
That is like if you're looking for one
The
thing,
key, that is the big key.
that's the key. So they spend a ton of time just trying to give you eyes to observe. How do I perceive when my spouse is giving me these bids for affection and attention, and how do I learn to turn towards them
Yeah.
rather than ignore them or turn or
Hostile.
become hostile towards them. Now they say that every day, even in with good couples, they miss several bids for affection in each day.
Yeah.
But if you begin to bank turning towards, so if you begin to sort of hit a certain percentage of turning towards and pay attention to them, then when you make the groan and your spouse doesn't pay attention, or if you want to talk about something and they're busy, then it just rolls off their back,
Right.
like water off the back of a duck.
Because it's like if you have 25 positive deposits, then you can withstand, 2 or 3 ignoring, or, I don't know, hostile's different. I feel like that feels you're in a different place. There's contempt involved at that point.
Right.
But it just allows you some resilience
Yes.
in dealing with the negative.
Right. And so, but it's also kind of, it's simple in that I think paying attention to all the different ways that we kind of volley, and the times in which we don't hit the ball back.
Right.
And that isn't insignificant, but that little thing
Yep.
is what they've turned towards.
Yeah.
Or they've sort of leaned in on as the determining factor.
Yeah, and we forgot to say they really harp on in the beginning that good marriages are not about grand gestures.
Yes.
Which, if you think about what's popular, like reality TV, what's popular? The
Well, like
Bachelor, The Bachelorette. Like,
all those fantastic dates.
yeah,
and-
it's like that. That is not what makes good marriages. Good marriages are the daily small things, and they kind of they emphasize that in the beginning,
Yeah.
and I think that's true.
So the idea is that you accumulate all the little positive moments, and when you do that, it's actually hard to hold a grudge against
Right.
each other.
Okay, so we have to kind of tick through these.
Right.
So that's one.
So that's one.
Day one.
So another little side note on that, on day one still. And I learned this week at this conference that I went to on humility. And it's a little trick called when X, do Y. So think of when you're in whatever situation, you're like pre-deciding you're going to do this. So something that kind of came to my mind was like, every time I'm at TJ's, our grocery store, I always try to smile. Like when in TJ's, like everyone just is sort of bummed out in the grocery store.
They're all grumpy.
They're all grumpy. But I've made it sort of a habit. When I'm there, I always smile.
So you just smile at everyone you pass?
Yes.
Gosh.
I know,
Now
this
you're
is
the-
who
now
you've
you're the-
married.
Now you're the weird guy.
I know. But it's what's really fun is you actually can change sort of the dynamic of an entire grocery store when you do that. It's amazing. So, but I think about this relationally. So like when you've had a hard day, I'm thinking about myself. When I have a hard day, I'm going to lean towards Renee. Or when there's a particular situation, I'm going to pre-decide.
It's like you pregame.
Yes, to respond in a certain way.
You have plays. Do you have a playbook with X's and Y's and O's?
Kind of. Kind of. But I don't know. It was a way to kind of press it. Like, So think of situations in which you haven't responded well. Mm-hmm. What's going on in your life? Have you had whatever at work or pressure or whatever? Notice when those weak points are and just insert when X, do Y. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm in this situation, I'm going to do the opposite thing that my body's telling me to do, and I'm going to do something else instead. So when X, do Y.
Okay.
Just a little something.
Little nugget.
Yeah. Okay. Day 2, ask big questions.
Yeah.
So.
And I can kind of summarize this chapter. The premise is that
probably a lot faster than me.
When you first meet someone, your conversations are filled with big questions and aspirational questions and really curious get to know you questions that very quickly, particularly when kids come along, morphs into to-do questions, logistic questions, schedule questions. And often you lose the practice and habit of open-ended, dreaming type questions. And they just sort of encourage you to remember and renew that practice of asking your spouse. I mean, we don't do that much anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what are your hopes for your job, or what do you want to do in 10 years? I mean, we've probably done more of that on this podcast, just in this structured setting than we do in real life.
Right.
But their to do for day 2 was to ask each other, was it 1 or 2 in the day? Maybe 2 open-ended questions that didn't have to do with the logistics of life. Mm-hmm.
And they say that when you are doing life together, they're just acknowledging, like, often you're not in a context or an environment where, if I were right now or, later today when we have a million things going on, honey, tell me about, what you really desire in your life.
I'd be like, what?
Yeah. And it's like, I've got to pick up Beckett right now.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
So, and this is why having a day to do it is important. So create an environment. But the idea, though, is that all of us have like this interior map. They call it the love map. Mm-hmm. It's a little cheesy, but the landscape in our own interior life shifts and changes as we grow older and have experiences. So I may know how you might have answered big questions 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. But we've lived a lot of life since then. Yeah. And so you can't, couples that get in trouble are couples that assume they know the answer to those questions.
And they stop asking the questions, so they stop kind of relearning who their spouse is as they change. And so then they wake up and they actually don't know them.
Right. And they're not curious about them anymore because they think they have them nailed.
Right.
So
it's dynamic, not static.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this is like you want to be continually curious, and I want to know what's going on in your heart and your mind, and assume that you don't know what it is, and you're really driven by a thirst, a desire to know you. And they had there's this question where it's like, where are you coming from? Like, where have you been? And they want you to think about that almost literally. Like, where is this action deriving from your map of the interior part of your life? So if your spouse is doing or saying things that seems unusual or out of character, why did you do that for? reframe that. Like, where are you coming from? Meaning, where does that derive from the map of their interior self? And that was kind of helpful for me to hear them articulate that.
Okay, so that was day.
That's day 2.
Okay, day 3.
Day 3 is say thank you.
Yeah.
So this is all about the lens through which you see your spouse.
It's actually acknowledging the things that you've forgotten that they do every day.
Yeah, and that they do right.
Mm-hmm.
Our natural inclination is to see the negative.
I thought that was interesting. Like the research that shows humanity's natural bent is to pick out the negative for survival. To correct.
Yeah, right.
To eliminate the things that will eliminate you.
Right. Remember we talked about the amygdala. It's like the most sticky part of our brain is our fight flight and things that trigger that. So yeah, which means that in order to see what your spouse does right, takes work, and you have to sort of
retrain yourself to look for those things instead of hyper focus on the bad things.
What they do wrong.
Yep.
Which then, when you do that, it lessens the chance of triggering the fight flight, which is the aggression, the self protection, all the things that sort of war against intimacy in a marriage. They're like, no, you need to sort of begin the conversation with positivity. Because it reduces the chance of triggering that fight flight, which then gets in the way of the relationship. So
the task for that day was just to literally consciously observe the things your spouse does right and thank them for it.
Right.
Like to verbally affirm when they do something right.
It's first is to ban criticism. So they're like, just ban, like they are pretty sort of dogged about that. Ban criticism, and then
they're like, you can deal with that later.
Yes.
Like there's always, there's space to do that, but to get in a good spot to where you can deal with it from a generous posture, you have to do this first.
Yep. Like it just makes it work better.
Yeah.
And then, what are they doing right? So create a journal.
Yeah.
Pay attention to
We can't give them all the to-dos because they need to read the book to get the
right.
There's an action plan for every single day that gives you very specifics.
Okay. Day 4, give a real compliment. This is a little bit connected with day 3.
Yeah.
But basically they were saying that in order for your spouse to actually receive any sort of critical feedback, it requires them to hear a lot of affirming language.
They said 5 to 1.
5 to 1.
5 to 1
in a conflict.
Yeah.
So when you're having that heated conflict, for that to be effective,
you have to have 5 positive affirmations to 1 negative.
And then in everyday interaction, the ratio needs to be closer to 20 to 1. So your spouse needs to hear 20 positive things to 1 kind of negative thing or corrective thing. And so therefore, because it's so important, you need to get good at giving each other genuine compliments, which means paying attention to what are their qualities. And in the book, they list like, in case you don't know, here's a bank of like 30 qualities
that you can affirm and compliment.
Right. And pick 3 of these. and then elaborate. And even as I was listening to this on the plane, I was writing these things out. I'm like, oh, this is so powerful. Like if couples actually
do
did
it.
this,
Yep.
pick 3 qualities and then elaborate on these qualities, that would melt and wear off a lot of the jagged edges in relationships.
Yep.
So that was powerful.
Yeah, that was powerful. Number 5. What's day 5?
Ask for what you need.
Yeah. That's what I kind of alluded to earlier.
Right. And again, their whole theme is that how you ask, how you sort of deal with sort of the criticism and the frustration with your spouse is really important for you actually getting what you want in the relationship.
Right.
And that the tactic matters, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Their basic assumption is that everyone has a good intention.
Right.
No one goes into marriage thinking, oh, I hate this person, or I want to just tear down this person. No one has that intention for the most 99%, right? But the way in which we deal with our criticism, frustration with each other, will determine the success and flourishing of said relationship. So we all need things in our marriage.
Right.
We all need things, and there's nothing wrong to say that this is what I want and this is what I need. And I know you and I grew up in context where wants are in one category and needs are in a totally different category. And they basically say it doesn't matter what category, if it's a want or a need. You're gonna have to learn to express it.
Yeah. I largely agree with that. And I do think there are things in the context of a marriage that, let me think of something silly. Like, let's say you never close the refrigerator door ever, right? For 22 years. Yeah. And so for years, it's like, please close the refrigerator door. Please close it. Like 22 years in, I shouldn't have to ask you to close the refrigerator door. Like you know that I need you to close the refrigerator door. And for me to have to constantly say that is parental at that point. It's not trying to draw us closer, right? It's a willful, on your part at that point, it's a willful decision when you choose to leave it open. And I do think there's a line there with what one feels like they have to verbalize, the needs and wants that they have to verbalize.
Right.
Do you not agree? No,
I do. And part of that is, man, at some point it is intention. If you've worked hard to make this need known.
Right.
Which they just want to make sure that the need is known. Often, going back to the refrigerator question, or, hypothetical there, that if you frame the need in criticism of your spouse's character,
right,
then what you're going to get is a negative response to it, not this is what I need, because so they say,
so it's not helpful to say close the refrigerator door. Are you 12?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
That's negative.
Right. That's more negative. That won't be responded to. It may, and to their point about sort of the diminishing results of communication.
Better would be, hey, I'm trying to maintain the house. I'm trying to have an environment that we all thrive.
Yes.
And when I have to constantly keep up with that in a level that's unnecessary, it really takes away from my productivity elsewhere.
Yeah. And I need you to shut the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ask is clear.
Yep.
And I do think to me, that's helpful. And the illustrations they give in that were helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have witnessed this, especially in marriage counseling and in the counseling setting, that learning to be clear on the ask without it being overly filled with accusatory language,
for sure,
just makes it to where people can hear it. Yeah. Otherwise,
right.
Then they're stuck in this loop of, well, I'm not that way. Like they want to protect themselves.
Well, even me saying it's parental, like that's negative.
Right.
Right. Because that's insinuating
your child.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I get that.
Right. So, so that helps minimize resentment. And
Yep. Okay. So that's 7.
That's 5. 6 is reach out and touch.
Yeah, I thought this was a really interesting chapter.
Yes. Very similar in insight to The Great Sex Rescue.
Yep.
Basically, they say that touch is necessary for human
And
flourishing.
not even, and they mostly talk about non-sexual touch.
Right.
It's mostly just about like actual physically touching each other non-sexually.
Right.
Holding hands or, rubbing
your back.
rubbing your neck or.
A brief touch here or there.
I did think, because I am such a snuggler. Mm-hmm. I mean, always have been. I'm such a snuggler. And I've told Dave, I've told you, I think if something happened to you, I would have to just get a snuggler for hire. Not necessarily sex for hire, but just a snuggler for hire. Because I just don't, I so need that every night. I'm just such a snuggler. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have
I'm so glad this is recorded.
I know. So many of my friends, they're like, I mean, they have a king size bed and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, get over there. And I literally like sleep draped over you every night. We had a full size bed for most of our marriage until I think Beckett was born. And now we just have a queen. So anyway, I thought that was very affirming to me.
Yeah, no, it is. It's necessary for human flourishing.
Yep.
It's that oxytocin.
Yeah. It said I'm going to live longer.
Yeah, that's right. And as a human need, everyone needs it.
Yeah.
They addressed, I think, really well the fact that people come from different cultures and have different personal experiences that impact how it is they receive touch.
Yeah.
But regardless, everyone needs some version of touch.
Yep.
So,
It's funny. I think I consciously tried to touch the boys every day.
Yeah.
Like on purpose.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really know this statistic, but and it gets harder as they get older, right? Mm-hmm. But I try to either hug them or like muss their hair or something.
Yeah. Some physical engagement is really critical. Mm-hmm. And I love so in marriage, like to foster a loving relationship, like hugging. Mm-hmm. You want to hug for 20 seconds. Yeah. They got it down to the second.
And there's statistics backing up the 20 seconds.
You need to kit.
6 seconds.
6 seconds. This isn't a peck on the cheek. That it takes 6 seconds to get that release of oxytocin.
Yep.
So
every time they say oxytocin, it's so close to Oxycontin.
Yeah.
It's so close. I'm always like, oh wait, no, oxytocin.
Different oxy.
Very different oxy.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one. That was the to-dos, and even just holding hands, and they kept saying the more the better, the more the better.
Right. And that it's they call it the trust molecule.
Yeah.
That the more that's released, the more you have positive touch, the more you bond. And they mention how that's been taken advantage of. Yeah. So like in bad relationships, it's like, what does she see in him? It's like, well, chances are some measure of touch is happening, that trust molecule has bonded her to him.
Yeah.
And therefore she trusts him, even though everyone else can see he's not worth it. But it's still powerful. So why not utilize that powerful physical reality in a marriage, in a good relationship, and foster that? So I thought that was really, really great.
Yeah, I thought, okay, so we're on to 7.
We're on to 7.
I thought this was the most cliche and most I just was surprised this was the last one.
And this is where they mention too the book that they wrote previously that I hated.
You hated, yeah. So number 7 is have a date night. I was like, really? That's the researched insight we're going to end with. Is have a date night.
So, but then they press in that date night doesn't mean going out to dinner.
Right? No.
It just means
intentional, out of the ordinary, remove from your mundane time together. It reminded me of that the book where they talked about having just a connection moment.
Yes.
It's creating that. It's
Yes.
creating space where you have
the hold me tight moment.
Yeah, hold me tight moment where you can have full attention, you can be heard,
Emotionally present.
Yeah.
Responsive. Yeah. So they say that most married relationships they actually have only 30 minutes of conversation just between husband and wife
A
per
week. A week. I thought that was crazy.
A week, 30 minutes
Yeah.
of real, like, and it's not tactical conversation, but 30 minutes of actual, like, what's going on with this person conversation a week. And with that in mind, they basically were like, you need to have a date night. So
No, they were like, once a week. Once a week, you have to have it. Once a week. They were pretty rigid about the frequency as well.
they were. And it was sort of kind of weird what they got into. They
Snuck into a fancy downtown Seattle hotel, and they would dress up, and you're not supposed to go in there unless you are staying there. I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of it, but they would sneak in, act like they were guests, and they would sit on this couch and like stay there all evening
and like have wine and like that became their thing. It was a little weird.
It was a little weird,
creepy.
And then they kind of talked about the couple who dressed up as a different character, and they would meet in a bar, and they would pretend to be, I'm a policeman and I'm a CIA agent.
Yeah, one was the CIA, the other was a KGB agent.
And they kind of like had to interact with each other as that character. I feel like I'm way too tired for this.
Yeah, it's very role play.
Way too tired.
That takes a lot of imagination and
A lot
energy.
of effort.
But they did say that another feature of healthy relationships is play, is having fun, is being creative.
You've said that. I think you said that last season.
Well, that's huge. It is huge. It's part of how we adapt to the difficulty of life.
Right.
We have to play. Learn from our kids on that.
Yep.
Even though the form, you can kind of pick at the form, and I feel the same way. And if you really want to get frustrated, read the Dates book. It's terrible, in my humble opinion.
Tell us how you really feel.
But I think just knowing as a value, we've got to have weekly time together.
Yep.
Or else we're not going to connect. And if we don't, the nature of life
and changing, evolving humans, you lose each other, literally.
You can,
like, you lose who they are. Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So 7 dates. Give us your quick best thing about this book. Any quick criticisms of the book?
Best thing about the book is that it helps you pay attention to the little things you can do every day.
Yep.
You don't need to buy anything.
Yep.
You don't need to change anything dramatic about your life.
You don't need to pay for an expensive therapist.
Right. You don't need to change your personality type. You don't have to change your attachment style.
Right.
These are free.
Yep.
And it's just paying attention to the human in front of you.
Yep.
Little bitty things you can do.
It felt very implementable.
Yes, which I so value.
Yep.
And they highlight throughout the whole book that couples who just get 1 or 2 of these insights
Still helps.
causes a mindset shift that makes a permanent change
Yep.
in their relationship. So
Yep.
what a gift.
Yep.
What a gift.
And to kind of like, they've put a lot of effort to distill down what actually makes a good relationship, and to give it. And I mean, it's not a tome. You don't have to read this giant work and sift through all the numbers or whatever. You can just. It really is easy to access.
Yeah. It is.
Access a lifetime of professional work, which is. I mean, that is a gift.
It is. Yeah. They put the cookies on the low shelf.
Yep.
You don't have to be academic to appreciate.
Yep.
It's very user friendly.
Yep.
So that's what I love. What I don't like about it is that you do have to grapple through hard conversations.
Yeah, it felt a little Pollyanna-ish in some ways. Like everything is, it kind of reminds me, I mean, this is not a criticism, but it reminds me of you.
Right.
Because
I've learned so much
No,
from...
but your just personality is you're just sunny, and you're going to see things, and you're going to be like, you just think positive. You know, like it reminded me of just your demeanor, which is a good thing. But it didn't give people a category for who have a hard time living there.
Right.
So once you're in a good place through all these positive things, then how do you subsequently start working on some of the negative things?
Yeah. They don't get into that.
Yeah.
And so I think the downside is, okay, I see all this, but what if we have to talk about that thing?
Yeah.
And there are just other books that are better.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
crucial conversations.
Yep.
Sort of the key one that comes to mind that can equip you to how to grapple with the reality of the fight flight being triggered. And when you're in that space and when you've already screwed up, other books do a better job of what happens when you're already triggered.
Yep.
This book is to help prevent
Yeah.
the regular pattern of being triggered.
Or get you in a place where you have enough in your positive cup to healthily deal with some of the other stuff.
Yeah, it's how do we build the bank account?
Yep.
Not make the withdrawals.
Yep. So what would you rank it?
Oh, this is 8.5.
Ooh.
That's high. Like I highly recommend this book.
Okay. So my one, it's kind of a silly criticism, but I think it would actually be more effective to do one behavior for a week and not just a day. And I think if you actually, I think doing it for a day might give you a taste of the positive. It would, you could glean from it, but I don't think it's going to change. But if you did that for a week, each one, I think it could really actually create a habit.
Yep.
But doing it for a day is not going to create a habit.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be, and it's obviously a longer commitment to, it's almost 2 months of doing this one behavior every day for 7 days and then week 2. But I just think that would be more effective long term than just a day.
Yeah, I think that's a great criticism.
Yeah, but
and like observation.
Yeah, I think
to
it
make
was,
better.
I felt like it was probably in this, it's hard to remember all the books we've talked about, but I think it's certainly the most accessible. The combination of accessibility, backed by research, not terribly complicated, and not hard to implement. Yeah. So if you're listening and you just feel like our marriage just needs something, like buy this and try it. Like I think it's a win. I think it'll be a win.
Yeah.
And it's an easy win.
Yeah. I can't imagine any couple reading this and not being helped.
Yep.
It's definitely not going to be led astray.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Ooh, let's go.
I know it's my highest yet. I know.
Let's go.
I know.
All right, get that book, folks.
All right. Thanks for listening. All right. So we're switching to surprise question.
Surprise question. Honey, I have a surprise question for you.
What is it? What is it going to get me out of my grumpy?
Maybe. So here's the question for you. Now, this is based on the previous week. I've been with our oldest son. We've been hanging out with other families, other parts of the country, who may or may not have a daughter exact same age as our son. And the word matchmaking hasn't come up yet. But
it's been thought.
But it's been...
So my girlfriends and I talk about it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time.
So
there was nothing like hidden about this, what happened when you guys were there.
Okay.
That was very intentional.
Okay. So, but we tried to, maybe we just haven't been as overt.
No, this was overt.
To the kids involved.
But I have to say, after this week, it went well. So one of my dear friends, love you, Alicia, has a daughter that's Will's age. And they're both smarty pantses and kind of looking at the same colleges. And we thought they just need to meet. Who knows, right? It could be a beautiful friendship. They're laughing at me. Go ahead. It could be a beautiful friendship. It could be a support. It could just be knowing that there's like another Christian kid across the country who might be at the same school I'm at or whatever. So this was in Will going, we wanted to strategically arrange that they meet. And so Alicia hosted a dinner with all the fellows on Monday night. So we thought Will could go to their house with everyone else and just kind of see. And then if he wanted to, the subsequent night, the fellows were going out to dinner. And Alicia, my friend was like, he could just come over here if he wants to. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't want to be super heavy-handed, so we gave him the option, right? Like he hung out on Monday night with their family and the fellows, and then we gave him the option, hey, you can
either hang out with me and
the guys,
all the pastor theologians,
which Will likes to be in those groups.
He does.
He likes or you can go back to the Yates house,
hang out with the
family, and guess what he chose?
Yeah. You really gave him an option there.
Yeah. So the question is, all this is just
sorry. I thought that was the question.
No, all this. So you and I have friends who are Indian. One in particular who we went to seminary with, who he literally had 1 year to find his spouse, or else his sister was going to pick his spouse for him.
Right.
In Indian culture, matchmaking and the parents having a significant say of who you marry is highly valued. Mm-hmm. So the question is, if you could decide for one of our children who they married, like if that was sort of in an option for you, would you do it?
I think I have two answers. I think if you look at the statistics in Indian culture about happiness and lasting marriages compared to Western culture, it's shocking.
Yeah.
Like so much more reported happiness and joy and lasting arrangement, right? Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, I actually think it works better for people who have real life experience. They know their kids. They know what makes for a good relationship. You have a wealth of knowledge about what makes a good relationship. I mean, I ask you all the time, you counsel a couple and I'll ask you, do you think they're going to do okay? And sometimes you say they're going to be fine. And sometimes you say, I don't know, like it may be rocky. Mm-hmm. So I think you even have a particular insight that most parents don't have. So on that hand, I would say 100% absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I would rather let this non-fully formed frontal lobe choose someone for the rest of their life. Yeah, whatever. Not a good idea. But on the flip side, it's a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. Because if they're unhappy, and some Indian arrangements, the spouses end up unhappy. It's on you.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't in American culture because it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in our context.
But it's but we have friends who that.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a worse system overall. Mm-hmm. And maybe do I wish we were. And when you have kids who are not there yet, but they're approaching, I mean, they're just 100,000 landmines everywhere. Yeah. And you see them, and they can't see them.
Right.
Because they don't have life experience to see them. So, I mean, I think the compromise is you have to foster a strong enough relationship with your kids that they value your input.
Right.
And we've had this conversation with the boys, before you marry someone, ask dad if it's a good match for you. Mm-hmm.
So, and at least at this point, they're
amenable to it.
That, which is easy to say.
So maybe we're creating a hybrid. We're letting them think that they're picking it, but then we actually have the final stamp.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that. It's
not going to go well.
Okay, that's great. Good answer.
All right. So, how can I make your day better? This is really loaded.
I know. By the way, in the book we just read, they had a version of this question.
They did. They
validation.
Did. They did.
I felt so no, they got. They've been
listening to our
No
podcast.
Quitting the Home Team.
They've been listening to our podcast.
Yeah, their version. I'm looking up.
I wrote. What can I do to help you today?
Oh yeah. Is there anything you need from me today?
Yeah.
Is there anything you need from me today?
Yeah.
Anyway. I think today, what you can do to I'm going to make my needs clear.
Okay.
Is I want to spend time with you.
Where I'm not mad at you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
I've been working really hard to not act miffed.
I know.
Can you tell?
Yes.
I've been working really. I returned your text promptly.
I know.
I've been working really hard.
Man, I sent out a lot of bids for affection today.
You did, and
I wrote you a little note this morning on the coffee.
you did, but you did with Will too. So that didn't feel particularly special because you wrote.
Can't win.
I mean, I appreciated it,
Yeah.
but there was one on Will's coffee too.
Right. But there was only one that said I love you.
Okay.
Not that I don't love my firstborn son, but
Keep trying, Will.
okay. So
You're not quite there yet.
what can you do to make my day better? What I need from you today is to spend time together and for us to talk leisurely and catch up on the past week
Okay.
and in a non sort of rushed environment.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have plans tonight.
I'm not sure if I have group or not. It's undetermined.
Undetermined.
So it
but
may or may not happen tonight.
if you could, I know I don't have.
You don't have
I
counseling
don't have
tonight.
counseling.
Okay.
So, but anyway,
I can't say definitively yes right now, but I will look into it.
you look into it.
She will take your request under consideration.
Right. Great.
How's that?
Yeah. Okay. So the jury's out. but I do want, even if you do have group, I do want to spend some time just connecting today.
Okay.
That would make my day better.
I could tell when I was talking to a friend on the phone when Dave got home. Thursday mornings are crazy, but he has a little point where he comes home after Bible study to get the boys' lunches, to bike the lunches to the school. Yeah, don't ask. And I was on the phone with a friend, and I was telling her about something that happened, and I could tell you were eavesdropping because you hadn't heard what happened.
Well, I just wanted to talk to you.
No, I know, but I was telling her about something that happened yesterday, and I could tell you were like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, I want to know what's going on. I have been I've been in North Carolina.
I know. All right. We've gone on and on and on.
Yes.
Are we going to do what we're into? I have a really quick one.
Okay, let's do it quick.
If you're in any environment that has deciduous trees, just take a moment every time you see an incredibly beautiful, colorful tree. Savor every one of them. I told the boys we were bike because I had to bike.
Every leaf.
Just every time there's, different trees change. I was like, for the next 8 weeks, every time I'm going to say, gosh, look how pretty that is. Look how gorgeous that is. So I'm into noticing and being cognizant of the beauty around us, specifically the fall colors changing, which are amazing here in Colorado. That's
great.
me.
I stepped out my front door this morning and went, "It is right to give him thanks and praise."
No, seriously though.
I mean, genuinely.
Seriously.
It's like
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And
it
we only
is.
get fall for about 3 weeks here, so you really do need to
It's
savor
really
it
October
before
in
the
the first-
snow.
yeah.
Before the snow shows up at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's true. Soak it in.
Great.
I'm not as grumpy anymore.
Oh, yay.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Or here, talk with you. We'll listen to you. We'll be here next time.
We'll do another podcast.
Next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.